Hello, Facebook. I'm Michael Forey with Sassoon Academy, and we're really excited. This is Hairbrained Live number 35, and we are at the masterclass in Santa Monica. I wanted to introduce two really special people, Tracy Sakasitz and Mark Hayes, who came all the way from London, and they're going to share a little hair for you today. If you didn't get a chance to see this somehow on Facebook, you could also catch them at ISSI. They will both be there sharing hair with you. So I'm going to let them get on with that.
Thank you, Michael. What a lovely introduction. Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay, so we're just prepping our models for the masterclass, which is happening in about an hour from now. And I think what really we're trying to sort of convey in the masterclass is obviously our newest Academy collection, which we've entitled Poetica, which forms part of a larger collection which encompasses both our salon and Academy brands. And the overarching idea is the digital bohemia concept. And I think from a hair perspective, you're going to see geometry, obviously, from Sassoon. But I think what's important is that geometry is a method as opposed to a look. You know, the geometric method can make hair do whatever you want it to do. And the finished result can be whatever you want it to be. Here on Yeva, working with 3 concentric layered panels. So the first one sits just below the occipital bone, as you can see, graduated shape, sitting just into the corner of the jaw. The next panel comes above that, and actually is first cut into the back, but then it will also come into the side. So that is kind of one panel, if you like, underneath here. And then the top section, so each one is cut onto the line and layered out, and then the top section sits completely over the whole thing. So the hair actually looks one length, but it's actually very, very layered through, so there's lots of texture and movement. And then just a really short little kind of choppy, scruffy fringe. So the whole thing will look really cool and natural, but it does have a very sort of disciplined technique in there as well.
Lots of love coming in, lots of people saying thank you for sharing. That's right. Thank you for your time.
It's always good to do an hour or so before you go on stage.
Yeah.
Well, it's what we do. That's what we talked about it, to do it this way, didn't we? Because I think this is, for me, the coolest time when you know, it's a little bit, it's pressure on because you want to get things so right for the people that are attending, isn't it? But that pressure is good. It makes you feels alive. It makes you feel alive. So this is Alex, and Alex, I mean, we've been doing a lot of boys' haircuts on girls, so I thought it'd only be right to turn that around and do a girl's haircut on a boy. No. So I'm going to work just now the outline of the shape, and then working along with the collection, a technique of concentric layering. So you have all these subtle little areas of layers that just slightly don't connect, but nothing hangs over the edges. I'm working the length now. It's going to be longer hair for him, obviously. And I'm working in my fingers. I think it's nice. I mean, it's very rare right now that I cut any of my geometric lines on the skin, because I think when you cut it in your fingers, it keeps the hair alive. We were talking about that, weren't we? Beverly Hills the other night. Yeah. Tension.
Got people from France and Australia.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Good morning, good evening. Bonjour. G'day. How lovely. Yeah, I think that's cool. I think, you know, Vidal always used to talk about, it's kind of interesting when you listen to the master of us all, Vidal, used to always talk about cutting, you know, you had to get the right amount of tension in the hair to make it work. And I think what it does, it makes the hair respond, doesn't it? You know, if you're cutting hair, I mean, obviously not too much, but enough to make the hair respond to what you're doing to it. Just makes the shape, just as you say, feel more alive, which I think is a cool thing. So here, just bringing everything down to the edge, to the graduated edge. So what I did first of all on Yeva's hair was to put a line into the outline, again, you know, as Tracy said, in my fingers, and then cleaned it off against the skin. graduated that line through, and then kind of lifted the hair right up and took the corner off. If I finish this section, I'll probably be able to show you. And then I'll do the same here. So everything at the moment, and the graduation is just coming off the round of the head. So if you notice, the hair's just combed, it's not wrapped around the head, it's not lifted too high, it's just coming off the round of the head. So it just produces that nice kind of low graduation in the back, which I think is kind of so nice, much nicer than a kind of, when it's too high and too A-line. So you've just got that nice kind of very, very, just a minimal band of graduation through the underneath. And I'll try and illustrate what I've done already by lifting the hair out in the other direction. It's a little bit tricky, but we'll try. So essentially then, so that's the graduation that I put in at the beginning, if you can see that. So that's the line. And then if you lift the hair out slightly higher, the top of that section, I don't know if you're going to be able to pick this up or not, maybe against my black jumper would be good. So you can see here, the top...
perfectly.
Okay. Top of the section just has the corner taken out a bit. So you kind of hear and then lifted the hair right up. And then the next part of the section is brought down onto that graduation. So you've got a little kind of area
They are loving this.
Doesn't connect.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then what I'll do when I take this panel, that will come down into that, take the weight off the top. So you've kind of got two little areas that break the two panels up. And then when the hair is finished, when that falls over the top, it'll look like a very low graduated bob. But when you move the hair around, it's going to have all this kind of layering inside it, which kind of makes it more versatile for the person. And when I spoke to Yeva about her hair originally, she was saying that she liked it she liked something kind of strong and reflective of her, but something also that can be kind of scruffy and a bit loose and a bit unstructured, which I think is a very modern way to wear hair now. I think it's a very modern, glamorous sort of way to wear hair. So I think if you can achieve that with technique, it always makes the shape look more sophisticated. I think, anyone can sort of chop hair about and make it look permanently scruffy. But I think it is really cool to do this sort of thing with technique so that the shape is refined and fits the head in a really cool way. And because I think technique makes the hair do what you want it to do, and it kind of means that you can create a shape that not only sits in a nice way when it's placed in the shape, but it will kind of move around in an interesting way.
Gina Manoski misses you, Tracy. I know I butchered her name. So.
Gina.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina. She's amazing, Gina.
Are any of you logged into this? Can you tell me if you can see the bottom of the screen?
So this is the next part then. So I lift Eva's head right up. So essentially what I'm doing here now is to lift the hair up, maintain the length in the corner, because obviously that forms the edge of the shape, so I don't want to alter that. Lift that hair right up. And again, it's not loads. You can see I'm not kind of removing loads of hair, but it's enough to make the hair disconnect from whatever is happening above it. And then you just bring everything up to that. So once again, allowing the edge to drop away, and then really just following the shape of the head inside. So it's very simple. It's all kind of really in the preparation, it's all about the thought process beforehand. And I think both Tracy and I, in fact the whole Sassoon team, we sort of map things out before we start, so that the actual cutting process, when you actually cut the hair, it's a very simple, easy thing to do, because everything is already pre-planned. That doesn't mean to say that you can't vary the shape as you go through. If you find something that's happening that's interesting, or if you kind of want to alter the length or adjust it slightly as the hair dries, you sometimes need to do that. But essentially, I always think that you think of the look first, and then you think of the technique that's going to achieve it, and then the third and most important thing is how you're going to make that technique fit onto the individual.
Gerard is thanking you for all this information.
That's all right, Gerard.
And then
Where's Gerard these days?
he's in Dallas. And then Alex Human says, I love these. Please don't ever delete these or stop making them.
Well, these haircuts or these...
Or more.
Please don't delete me.
Delete more.
No, don't delete me. Please. Okay, so you can see now, you've got very thick hair, so you don't have to leave tons over the top. I might just cheat a little bit more into it. So I just want, everything's very, very clean and precise in terms of the sectioning, because that's what's going to make the hair work. If you're not kind of precise in this stage of the haircut when the hair's down, everything else after is going to be compromised. You want to make things really, really sharp. And I was talking to someone the other day about Roger Thompson, who obviously was the first international creative director at Sassoon. And they were saying that he used to divide big areas of the head and then take tiny subsections inside that. And I think kind of that's what we sort of do with our work now. So now inside this, I'll take the section slightly vertically on the diagonal, hold the hair back. Everything's over-directed. I very rarely take a true horizontal or vertical section. Everything is slightly curved because I think the head is a curved shape. So to me, it kind of makes sense to work the sections in a curve as well. And again, the hair's just being combed off the round of the head, not lifting too much because you want to build the shape in. And the over direction, I don't know if you can see that, just makes the hair curve around the head in a nice way. It just kind of bends the hair a little bit. I'll just pivot that slightly to work this through. So again, the section kind of becomes slightly more diagonal.
Lots of compliments for the model.
Thank
Of course.
you, thank you.
So just making sure everything's clean now.
Tracy, you ready to catch us up? Okay. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm gonna work off just the center. I'm only gonna do a couple sections because the rest will be saved for the master class. But I'm gonna start off with a very classical, Sassoon shape, inspired by a haircut called the Shake, which was just a little shaggy front, little layered haircut. So with this, I'll work with curved sections back, set the length in. So I've graduated the outline in the fingers.
Great. We had a question about why your sections being so clean are so important.
I don't know how to do it without them. But why it's so important? It's control, isn't it? It's control of the hair on the head. You have to know where it comes from to know where it's going to fall. And when you want things to be precise and all to one point, it has to evenly come out from the scalp to that one point. And if you have that little bit of gap and you don't know where it's coming from, if you think of this shape, it does this, it graduates 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So if your section's not clean, you kind of get more of that. So it's to make things really precise, which I think is really important with everything, even if it's something that's loose and layered. Knowing where the hair comes out from the head, I hope you know where it's going to go. So with this hair now, clean comb from roots to ends. That's kind of the most important part. When I teach here at the Academy, especially with like an ABC course, a really classical course, and people want to know the trick to getting things really clean and neat, that's the starting point. I won't even let them start cutting unless they get the sections down. So really clean, neat sections, and recommending them to use the wide teeth of the comb to section, the small teeth of the comb to cut.
Chris Harker says that's a perfect explanation. Thank you.
Yeah. And then from there, we can create this little rounded shape. coming into the length. So I have the length in sight where I want to be. This easily can go into what we call a bi-level. This is one of the things that I always remember when I trained. My first shake, I think, was a bi-level. Absolutely, absolutely not.
Angela just joined from Croatia.
Oh, we miss
She was here
Angela.
last year,
How
right?
is she?
She's good.
She was here with us last year. So you just get that really beautiful little face framey shape on the front. So I'm going to cut that.
I don't think this guy can talk too much about his career or anything because of the work he's doing, but he's pretty famous, this guy.
Who, this guy? This guy here under me,
Yeah.
Alex? He's not only really famous, but he's also hysterical. And I love him. I love cutting his hair. Interestingly enough, I mean, Alex came in with a real, with this kind of look, but because he does a lot of work modeling, he has his hair cut quite often, but it's not always a full haircut. It's a little bit off here, a little bit off here. So it was really great to kind of finally get my hands in it and kind of give him a haircut and a really kind of structured look to go, to match what he really likes his hair to look like.
Now, Gerard said that it's rumored, Mark, that you have an extra digit, which is the key to your success.
An extra digit. I can't possibly share that. I don't know how to answer that. Thank you, Gerard, for making me speechless once again. I won't tell you what Gerard has an extra
We did
one.
have the ruler out today. We were measuring fingers.
Be careful what you can say there. Not that we're obsessed.
Clarify.
Yeah.
There's
So,
480 people in here with you right now.
and it's getting very warm. Nice though. It feels nice and cozy. So you can see now what's happening here. The edge is dropping away, and the inside is now completely layered through. But I've got this little strip of hair above that will cover all that up. And as I said, this is kind of like the preparatory part of the haircut. This part really is removing what you don't need before you can start working with what you want, if you know what I mean. So we've got this nice edge that just cuts across the corner of the jaw. Yeva's got a beautiful shaped face, obviously. And if I lift the hair up in the other direction, you'll get a sense of the line and then the corner being taken out. And what I'll probably do after I've dried the hair, I'll probably take more of that away. So lift it right over the head and take the corner away completely, so it really flattens that out. So yes, it'll be a very skinny kind of layered look, but then you have the one length panel that comes completely over the top. And then eventually, that one length line over the top, I'll break into all the edge in a very controlled way when the hair's dry, just point into all of the outline, point into the length, point into the different layering. So you've still got the, going back to what Tracy was saying about accuracy earlier, I think a haircut should have three main areas, really. And I think, first of all, always comes technique, because without technique, you can't master the form you're working with, obviously. And you can't make hair do what you want it to do. You can kind of push it around and sort of, you can dress hair into shape, but obviously it's never going to stay there. If it's got no structure, if it's got nothing to make it do that. So I think that's the first thing, and technique underpins everything else. The next thing is obviously creativity. And creativity, to me, I suppose I've defined creativity is an idea that serves a purpose, an idea that serves some sort of functionality. So I think, for me, that's what creativity is. And obviously, in a haircut, creativity is the degree of imagination that you can put into a shape to individualize it. And that sort of leads into the third part, which is probably the most important for me, is suitability. And obviously, suitability is kind of very subjective. What one person thinks is beautiful, someone else won't. But I think from a suitability point of view, it's not about what shape your face is or what, you know, what size your body is or anything like, or what, you know, anything like that. Suitability to me is much more about the individual, the person. And I think, you know, I've met, obviously, over my career, I've met thousands of hairdressers, some very successful people, not necessarily the most technical, not necessarily the most creative, but what they all have in common is they can communicate with the person they're working with. So I think if you've got that degree of communication, you can make anything suit anybody, I believe. So this is the double fringe. Little graduated out. Again, working sort of off the top of the head, not lifting the hair too much, not holding it too flat, just out from the head so your fingers are just below the highest part. So you've just got a tiny amount of graduation that you won't be able to see right now, but you will as the hair dries. And then similar principle to the rest of the haircut. Now lifting that up, right back. So again, you're just taking, so if you imagine the fringe is there, that's the fringe length. That's the fringe length. And then I've just literally lifted it right up and taken the corner off the top of it. And then we'll do another one on the top of that. And it just gives a fringe a really nice, cool texture because the length is actually coming from the inside as opposed to coming from the underneath, so it moves in a really nice way. So again, that's technique. You know, technique will make the hair look really effortlessly cool. And the only thing that's doing that is the technique, the choice of length, and then the finish and all that sort of stuff.
All right, where are we at now?
Yeah, so with this, I'm doing it very, very classically. So bringing everything forward. And one of the things I think is a cool trick, if you think about it, if you cut a square line, when you let it go, it'll round itself back, opposed to trying to actually cut a rounded, symmetrical line. You know, just think about drawing a circle on a piece of paper. It's virtually impossible to get it symmetrical, right? So with this, I use the head shape. You can see the comb's flat on the head. As I come off the forehead, I just come into a square line. Flat off the head as well this way. And that just creates that little graduation. Keep that corner in there before you come down here. Because as soon as you start coming down there, you're heading for your bi-level, which is cool as well, but it's not what we want in this case. So then I'll take from that corner, which is the recession area or above the temple, and come through. And I take it in panels. So I only work to my knuckle ever. So I've worked the top of the head, I've worked the round of the head, I work in front of the ear. So really breaking it down, again, cleanly with the sections. So I section there through and control my edge. Really important is this to control the edge to get it right.
Then Booty's sign, and I'm sure I messed this name up, says, loving the explanation. Thank you so very much for this.
Quite welcome. My pleasure. And then when we let go of that, and the hair falls in place, cross your fingers, guys, we've got that really nice little cool shape, or that kind of referencing, I guess. Sometimes I reference when I see this, especially on his white skin with his dark hair, a little Ramones kind of front hairline. And that kind of shape is really amazing on a face like this because, you know, the roundness comes back, you skim the eyes, very rock and roll. Cheekbone comes out, while the face is free. Yeah.
So many people are sharing this. Thank you, guys. 600 people are on now.
Nice. Nice. So I'm going to add whatever in. And it could
Isaac
be...
says you are the best.
Oh. Next to Mark, right?
Yeah.
That's where
I think he was
that's
meaning
where I
both
learned
of you
it
guys.
from.
Assessing.
That's where we learned it from. I mean, that's the thing about Sassoon, which is so amazing, to be just constantly surrounded by such talent. I mean, in the industry as a whole, but you have to kind of place yourself next to people, and I've said this before, who are better than you and stronger at certain things, so that challenge you to rise up from your standard to try to match. I mean, as hairdressers, I think we have that competitive spirit, and if you use it in a positive way.
You're getting a lot of wow, just wow.
If you use it in a positive way, it really just makes you so strong. And so I position myself very, very closely next to Mark on as much as possible. So like we were saying earlier, you know, we have this event, which is November, and then Mark comes back in January, and we're going to do ISSI. And, you know, so I'm constantly challenged being able to see and work next to somebody that sees hair the way they do.
Got a comment that Sassoon Academy is just absolutely the best training you ever get.
Thank you very much. I mean, obviously, we believe that everything is about training. You know, from the very start to you never stop learning. You know, in this well, you'd never stop learning anyway. But I think in terms of working with hair, if you don't continually try and improve what you do, you inevitably go backwards. So it's kind of about always trying to progress and always trying to do.
Can you discuss the collection? We're getting questions about
Sure.
what your inspiration
Yeah.
was for the collection.
Okay, so I'm sure some of you have already seen the imagery that has appeared on social media, etc. And I think what's interesting is, I don't believe in trends. I don't believe that there are trends with things, because I think everything is so broken down now, and we are obviously truly living in a global village has really sort of come into its own now. So I think, but you kind of see things that interest you. And I think one of the things that's interested me most over the last few months, obviously we shoot the collection about 9 months in advance. So this was shot in January. What I noticed was that there was lots, obviously there's been a big vintage kind of thing happened over the last few years. But I think what's interesting now is the idea or the concept of traditional dress, using traditional dress mixed with sportswear. I think that was kind of the jumping off point. I also had a conversation, so that was the first thing I was thinking of in terms of the wardrobe. And then actually it's a very cinematic collection, and it was very much inspired by the movies of film director Wong Kar-wai, and in particular his work around the sort of mid-80s. He produced a trilogy of movies which started with Days of Being Wild and then moved into In the Mood for Love, which is probably one of the most beautiful films to look at that's ever been made. And then a movie, the final part of the trilogy was a movie called 2046. And, they're all kind of love stories, and they're set across time and space. A lot of them are set in Singapore or Hong Kong. So the collection naturally took on this kind of slightly East meets West feel, sort of bricolage of East meets West. And in particular, in the movie 2046 and in the movie Days of Being Wild, there are two characters who have these incredible haircuts. One is an android sort of train stewardess in 2046, and she has this hugely extravagantly curled geometric haircut, which we were very, very inspired by. And then the second character had this kind of close-cropped androgyny. So essentially, two very different looks, a big sort of what we're calling the fro bob, huge big curls in a geometric haircut, and then close-cropped sort of slightly agender haircuts as well. And these are all set in the idea of the clothing is based on the Japanese kimono, the Korean hanbok, and the Chinese cheongsam. So that's the kind of wardrobe. So it's kind of cool to see these traditional clothing mixed with sportswear with really cool geometric hair. And the colourway, as you can see from Tracy and mine's models, very monochromatic. So either working with ebony shades or white or blood red, which I think is such a compelling colour palette to set off the shapes.
Thank you, Mark. Getting hellos from all over the world still. And lots of thank yous for that.
Okay, so I'm adding in the rest of the lens. So very similar to what Mark's doing in concept of just creating these little panels that don't connect, these panels of layering. So cut the line in, then I layered the corner off of it through the pretty much from the top of the ear. And then the rest of the hair that was left just came down enough to reach the line. You can see that on this side. So if I lift it up, hopefully mine does what Mark's did.
What's that? Yeah. It's always the...
Let's just see. And lift it up, we should have
like
a
those
little...
in the oven door for a souffle. That's the thing.
Okay. That's the last one that's just cut down. That one will be layered out as well, just the edge off, but I'll do that when it's dry, because it's just about like a comb's width band, just below the crown.
So there's questions about your scissors. Are you both using Hikari?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, normally I am as well. These are scissors that I'm trying actually.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a question about why you're only working half of the head.
Because the other
Yeah,
side is for the show. So if we can get both sides the same, we're laughing. But my thing about it is, if both sides look great, they don't have to be the same.
All right.
That's right. That's the maximum. If they both look cool, then
If they look good, they're good.
Exactly.
If it's good, it's good.
I'll tell my sisters that.
Exactly.
No, it's not for the
Symmetry's never
Once
been
they
my
qualify,
symmetry's never been my strong point. No,
So what
normally
we'll do
I'd
is we'll
work
post
off
the
those.
finished picture in the comments.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole finished look. we
If
can
there's no
post,
finished
don't
picture,
we?
you know I didn't get both sides.
Yeah, so I'm going to save this whole side for stage. And
Speaking of, how are we doing on time?
good question.
You might miss the show.
Yeah,
It's
sure, it's
2:32.
over.
2:32.
Oh, okay, we're good, we're just wrapping up. So for those of you out there that won't see me do this, what I'll do is section this area into 3 sections from the round of the head, and when it's dry, just layer and pull that back so create that shape fits. Take one more, that little strip there, same thing, off, let the just edge drop out, layer that through, and then the very last one, and it all just folds back on itself.
Nice.
So there'll just be that kind of little separation throughout the inside, which I think makes a very kind of iconic haircut, or haircut that was done in the late 60s or the 70s look now. I mean, those are the things. You want those, I mean, haircuts and balances and shapes then were so amazing.
Can you
But they
explain
have
the
to be done
disconnection
right
that you
now.
did again, please? On the layering, like there's a question. Manuela Hurton says, Mark, quick question. Why put a layer and then after straighten the line? Does it defeat the purpose of the layer? Thank you for your time. Thank you for explaining. I think what she was asking is why the disconnection, why putting the layer and then dropping past it and connecting it back to
Oh,
the
okay.
layer.
Well, because I think if you cut the layer, if you put the layers on the top, then it kind of becomes one thing. It kind of becomes slightly sort of retro-y looking, I think. Whereas if you put the layers through the underneath, you achieve a similar result in terms of the looseness and the texture you achieve. But the top can still stay smooth, which I think just looks really cool. I love the idea at the moment of a very blunt-looking hair, but not just completely one length, because if it's all connected together, it can only move as one mass of hair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if everything is blended together, it will move together. If you put little areas of shorter hair underneath that are hidden, the hair will move independently. So the top will move, the underneath will move differently. And also it allows you to be able to kind of make texture in the hair that you wouldn't be able to do if it was all completely one length. So the disconnection, the layering, provides the disconnection that makes the hair move in an interesting way that it wouldn't do otherwise.
Cool. She said, Roxy says, this is an absolute treat. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
We're having a good time.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm done.
All right. I
Good.
think
I'm good till
you guys are
later.
ready to go on, right?
Yeah, we're getting ready.
All right. You want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care.
All right,
It's
so
always a pleasure to share.
Michael Paulsonelli just joined right for the closing, so.